Good evening. At this time, we'll have our invocation by Commissioner/Reverend Jerry Langley. Jerry?
Let us pray. Well, Lord our God, we are grateful and thankful for this very moment in time. God, we're thankful that you've allowed us to assemble ourselves together one more time. And God, now as we convene this meeting on behalf of your people, help us, oh God, to be civil, have compassion, and understanding. We thank you for all that you're doing for this nation, for this country, and this county. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll ask that you stand, and we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and that'll be led by Commissioner Walker.
Face the flag, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to ask at this time if you will take your phone and make sure it's in the off button, please. Okay, we're down to conflict of interest disclosure. Does any commissioner have a conflict as it relates to tonight's agenda? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move to the approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the approval of the agenda, raise your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. We're down now to items for presentation, and that's our service awards, and I'll ask Dolores if she will to come forward.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I have two Beaufort County employees I'd like to recognize tonight for their service. They could not make it here tonight. First of all, we have Emily Moore, who has 5 years of service with the Health Department. And then secondly, we have Vera McConnell with 25 years of service with our Health Department.
Thank you very much, and pass along our thanks.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we're down now to public comments, and the first one is Johnny. And I'll ask, because we have several, state your name, your full name, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Johnny Houston. I am here because we have a situation going on with our kids in the Department of Social Service. I think my wife has come and spoke last month or the month before. My main concern is why the Department of Social Services is not being held accountable. Like there's nobody that they answer to. Jurisdiction-wise or otherwise. Me and my wife have been in counseling with our pastor since before this situation even started. And now we find out that they want us to go to their counselors. After we went to their parenting classes and everything else, they have too much control and too much jurisdiction into people's personal lives. But I'm not much of a public speaker, so my wife has helped me write some stuff down. I told her what I wanted to say, and she helped me write it down so y'all will be able to understand it. This board cannot do anything about the court system, but it can do something about the attorneys and employees that have stalled our court dates. They pushed for our continuance. Matthew Jackson has pushed for our continuance several times. We've been waiting since last October to go to court. We never had a 7-day hearing. We've never been heard by a judge other than hearing about visitation. They are violating our parental rights, our constitutional rights. They're not abiding by the 7B laws. The attorney has supported the DSS director, caseworkers, employees. This board also helps fund their salaries in submitting petitions to a judge that have still to this date have been unverified, unproven. And they use this petition to remove our children from our home. They've never done any type of proper investigation into the incidences that happened that day. This board also holds a contract with DSS and was just signed in June that begins today for a period of 2 years. That contract states that you can issue sanctions on DSS. You can issue corrective action plans. You can fire just like you hired these people. If you that pay the people that the employees that you pay, if the issues are severe enough. It seems to me the issue of removing children from their homes and families that are on no imminent danger is unlawful and is a very severe issue. An attorney that will strong arm parents into making deals before they've had a chance to go to court, when he becomes aware that what's in his petition is false, instead of just backing off and giving us our kids back.
Sir, I'll give you one more minute. You 3 minutes are up. I'll give you another minute.
Since this is, I'll just go from here. Since they've come to us, instead of just saying we made a mistake and giving us our kids back, they've come to us time and time again. If you'll just plead to this, we'll give you your kids back. If you'll just plead to this, negligence was the first thing, and then injurious environment, and then dependency. You know, they're trying to get out of this without having to take no fault to themselves. And I don't feel like that's right. And there's no other agency that holds them accountable.
You finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. The next one we have is Dolores.
Good afternoon, gentlemen,
Good afternoon.
and thank you for hearing me. My name is Dolores Harris. I am here on behalf of Johnny and Juanita Houston. Kids were taken from them in October of 2023 for a fight between two brothers that the daddy was accused of. There's a lot going on that I don't understand. I have the 17-year-old in my house. And pretty much just dropped there because I have to transport him. I have to feed him. I have to clothe him. They check in, but they're not responsible. DSS has just not been what they should be to these kids and these families. And every day I talk to them, because I called them this morning with questions, I ask, are you really working to get this family back together? Johnny has called me mother since he was 16 years old because he and my son are very best friends. I know these kids. I've been in their home. They're in my home. They call me Mima. I don't know why. Why? Don't understand. They're not accountable for just keeping them. I called today and said, look, 17-year-olds eat. I live by myself. I am on a fixed income. And where does my help come from? And they have no idea. Well, I just happen to know a little bit more than they know because IUP kids usually get a check. Where's this check going? What's happened to it? Who's cut it off? And nobody can answer me. They don't know. So I'm wanting to know the same as Johnny pretty much. Who are they accountable to? Who do they answer to? Who's making them follow the law? When these kids should have never, ever, ever been taken from their parents because of a fight between the brothers, or something that the 17-year-olds say. And I don't understand why they keep wanting the mother to sign something saying that there is friction between her and her husband. And then her husband goes and she gets the kids back. Who does that? I've been in court with them every time. I've been with them for a lot. And I just want to know, when are they going to be held accountable for what they do? Because it's not all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Peter.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Peter Karanovich. I moved to Bellhaven 3 years ago. I am a registered citizen here. I might be too late because I just found out this past Thursday that non-city citizens of Beaufort County doesn't have to pay to go to the senior center anymore. There's a charge now. Affecting July 1. But if the senior citizen is funded by a federal grant because it is a senior citizen center, and they're charging senior citizens outside the city to pay, isn't that, you can't do that because you lose your funding, I think. I'm not sure. I may be too late. I just found out Thursday when I was at the center doing my exercise. They have exercise class and blood pressure checkup, health things, all kinds of stuff for senior citizens that we should go to. And I'm just concerned that I can't go there now because I'm on a budget just like everybody else. And I come there 2-3 times a week. And so it's like $20 a month or $200 or $175 a year up front. I pay my taxes for the county. Just, I'm wrapping it up. Bellhaven used to have a senior citizen center. They don't have it anymore. So I come to Washington. I've been doing it for about a year. And like I said, I just found out this Thursday that if I want to go to my line dancing class tomorrow, I got to pay either $20 for the month or $175 for the full year. But then if I do it by the month, it comes out to $225. I mean, I understand a deal, but I just feel that it's injustice to charge me if I'm a citizen of the county, but not a citizen of Washington in the city limits. That's all. I just don't think it's right. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for hearing.
Our next one is Jessica.
Hi, gentlemen. Jessica Jones. I needed to make you guys aware, since I've been here last, on June 5th, I saw an attorney in Greenville. And he informed me that Matthew Jackson called him on May 23rd and told him that I was crazy and tried to block counsel for me. I know that his closed session is tonight, and I'm really hoping that you guys are going to hold him accountable, because I agree with them. I give them an amen. I mean, some of the same things have happened to me, and somebody needs to hold them accountable. Like, somebody needs to do something. And if you guys don't, you can't say you don't condone the behavior, because I mean, signs point to you do. But I just want to tell you guys that. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Kidwell had said he might be here, but I don't see him. And I do not see Senator Jim Perry. So we'll move to the items for consent. I'll entertain a motion. Well, I'm sorry. Does anyone want to pull an item from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I have a correction on the consent agenda, please. Page 9. I had a typo. Both those numbers should be $152,000.
I'm sorry.
Page 9,
Page 9.
those numbers should be $153,900.
Okay. All right. One more time, does anyone want to remove an item from the consent? Okay, here none, I entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, we're down to items for discussion and decision. The Health Department, the year 2023 State of the County's Health Report. Janelle? Good evening.
How are you?
Fine.
Good. So I'm here to do our annual report of the 2023 SOT report, which public health speaks in acronyms. So that is the State of the County Health Report. Basically, this report supplements every year when we don't do a community health needs assessment. And I will just put a shout out that I mentioned to you guys a couple months ago that we were currently collecting surveys and trying to get the community members and yourselves included to share your voice for our upcoming community health assessment. The goal that was given to us number-wise was 381 surveys, and we surpassed that with collecting almost 492, which is great. We had a good representation of the county, and that's going to make helping compare data awesome. So thank you for that. But to the SOT report, basically this is just an overview of the county, and our population was recorded at 44,481. Our leading causes of death come directly from our most recent trial, which you can see is 2021, but that will soon be updated next year as of March. And heart disease and cancer were the top two, followed by CVD, chronic lower respiratory diseases, and Alzheimer's disease. And just a reflection, that trial, why it's so important is helping focus and select those priority areas is what helps drive the health department and other services and programs into the county to help meet those needs. It helps assure that we're creating programs and services that help tackle these leading causes of death versus just creating programs and services just to create them. Those priority issues fell within chronic disease, mental health, economy, and vulnerable populations. And those are those four that I just mentioned of how that prioritization came and kind of where our focus is. So this report will reflect those priority items and how we tried to meet some of those as well as some data points. So if you remember, we did start employee health in 2023 at the health department. These clinic services were offered to all full-time county employees to provide appointments for sick visits, minor injuries, as well as prescription and behavioral health. And we had 87 employees who were seen in Healthy Living Clinic. Obviously, this ties directly to chronic disease because this was a benefit to employees who were able to come to our employee health clinic, get seen. If they were able to return to work, we were able to get them back to work sooner. If there was something we could help, whether it's prescription or go home, we were able to recuperate them. So again, that they're coming to work healthy and ready to work versus struggling. We also had our breast and cervical cancer prevention program where we were able to see 120 patients enrolled in that program last year. This program provides free or low-cost breast and cervical cancer screenings as well as follow-up to those eligible. Under priority issue number 2 is mental health, and we did have our behavioral health services. Clients basically are able to receive psychiatric and counseling services to assist with various disorders or issues. And 88 clients have had an initial visit with our behavioral health counselor, and 77 returned for follow-up behavioral health visits. And I'm just going to do a quick shout out. This is not in the report, but we actually recently ran into an issue with a client who's been seeing us for several years with behavioral health, and his insurance suddenly became out of network. They basically didn't want to enroll with us. We tried to do what we could to get a network with them, and they said no. Well, a testimony to our counselor that we have, they switched insurances. They weren't going to switch counselors. They were going to come. And so that's just a testament to her and all the effort she's doing there. The good news is she's well liked, well trusted, and people are coming to see her. Bad news is I need a couple more of her. But on to the next thing. So prevention point is also falls under mental health, where we had distributed 1,034 doses of Narcan. We did have 19 reversals reported to us. Those are self-reported. We anticipate much more, but these are individuals that report back to us that they used or someone else used that. So, and then we had 134 unduplicated participants in our prevention point program. Our other priority issue is economy. For this one, obviously, as far as a health department, that priority issue, we can't do so much there besides ensure that we have a strong workforce and continue with that, as well as help support some of the other fundamental things that might help people with their households or family, unemployment, sharing those things with NC Works, things of that such. But you'll see here that it was reported $56,081 was the median household income for Beaufort County. 17.7% of Beaufort County residents live below the federal poverty level, and we had an unemployment rate of about 3.6. So obviously, this data is great to keep in mind too, because obviously with the new community health assessment coming out, it'll be a great comparative issue as well. The last priority issue was vulnerable populations. One of them being our mothers and infants. I know I've talked to you guys before about our maternal and infant mortality rates in Beaufort County. Our SIM-HEART, which is Care Management for High-Risk Pregnancies, is a program that works directly with mothers pregnant, maybe high-risk pregnancies, to help have healthier outcomes. And we had 73 women served in 2023. And then also our CMART, which is Care Management for At-Risk Children, and we served 69 in 2023. Testing is free, confidential HIV, Hep C, and syphilis testing. That test is able to be conducted in the community anywhere in Beaufort County, as well as 2 other surrounding counties. This is offered free of charge. We tested 93 for HIV, 51 for Hep C, 68 for syphilis. We also were able to offer a safe sleep program. Unfortunately, the funding for this program went away, but it was awesome. We were able to provide safe sleep environments such as the fold-out cribs, basically, and give those to families and residents who identified not having a safe sleep for their baby to rest. And we were able to distribute 108 of those to parents in need. And last but not least is just a kind of overview highlight of 2023 for some pictures, kind of put a face to some of the awesome work that's being done. We did conduct over 30 presentations and outreach events throughout the community in 2023. We had our annual teen health fair that we had over 200 teens attend. We had a community baby shower that was able to be held with some excess funding from a grant we had, and we had almost 150 moms, new moms or expecting mothers attend, and it was fantabulous. And then in addition to screenings and things conducted of that such, but we also try very much so as a health department, education and awareness is huge. We think it goes a long way. So as much as we can, staff are, dressing up in the colors and bringing awareness and partnering with other agencies in the community to create kind of a stronger force to say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what you need to know. This is what to be aware of. So some of those pictures also kind of brought those into picture. Any questions? Yeah.
Commissioner Langley.
The leading causes of death, this is just the top 5.
Oh, yes, sir. Mhm.
Because when I said diabetes has to be somewhere around.
Very close. Yes, sir. And that's still a lot of things that we see with, for example, heart disease and a lot of those, you'll find diabetes as a risk factor, as well as something Beaufort County is definitely struggling with, which is where our diabetes prevention and our DSME, which is diabetes self-management classes, come into play. But yes, those were just the top 5. So diabetes is up there on that list. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Commissioner Rebholz.
On the behavioral health,
Yes, sir.
you mentioned you needed more of counselors. Can you delve into that a little more? For example, are we not serving the demand that's there?
No.
Or
As a county, as other counties, the provider ratio for behavioral health counselors to people are not where they should be. Now, what I will say to that is I know our wait list right now is about 25 patients. Our counselor manages that wait list to the best of her ability, where if there is a self-harm or something more critical that she is able to move them up the list and do as much as she can to get them in and seen. But there's just not enough mental health counselors to meet the need. Now, what I will say is I'm currently working on a grant, as well as another staff member is, in hopes to get us another counselor to help meet the wait list that we have, as well as hopefully open it up to more people to be seen.
okay.
Commissioner Booth.
So you had 69 pregnant women that visited your center last year in 2023, is that correct?
For the SIM part, right?
Yes.
Yes.
How many babies were born?
Well, from that one.
Are those ladies?
So the children, the 69 are children already born.
Okay.
The 73 were the women at high risk pregnancies, and I do not know the number of the outcomes on this report, but I can get that to you.
Okay. I was reading, I was asking, I keep seeing we have a decline in population. You got this many pregnant women going through your office, and you wonder where them babies going.
Now, I know we also have, because the disparity that we see as well in minority women. So we have our Healthy Beginnings program, which is not up here, but that is a funding that we go for, and we will reapply this fall. She has a caseload of 40 women, and she works with them during their pregnancy as well as up to the age of 2.
Do you count them over and over? Is the same woman you count it? If she come 2 times, is that?
So in this program, it's within 1 year. You can't be more pregnant than one time. And
I
if there
understand
is,
that,
so we
but
did not
if
undo.
she stay pregnant for 9 months and she go see you 4 times, do you count her 4 times or just 1 time?
No, this is just one time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? Okay, you want to go to your next item?
I will gladly. All right, let me get my papers. All right, so in front of you guys, I am requesting a position reclassification from our public health education specialist to a public health educator 2. As you're fully aware, we had a MAP study done in the county recently, but DSS and health department were looked at of our current classifications, but the job duties were not looked at because we fall under OSHR. Following that MAP study, I did submit the current job description for the public health education specialist position. And due to the evolving duties that it's now overseeing, it's gone from managing or overseeing 2 programs such as tobacco cessation and family, faithful families to now also including MAT and the jail health education, prevention point, obviously very involved too with the opioid settlement dollars through the Behavioral Health Task Force, as well as the Second Judicial Court involved there. We did submit that to OSHR, and February, OSHR submitted back that this position did qualify for a reclassification as a public health educator 2. If you were to move this to a public health educator 2, it would also, the rest of the positions in that department would all then be at the same. This is the only position that is not classified in this department as a public health educator 2. Yes, that's my plea.
Okay, Commissioner Rebholz.
This position was in the expansion budget.
It was, yes, sir.
And what did we do with it? You voted it down. Okay.
Mhm.
So now you're bringing it up this way.
I am, and if you so choose not to, that's fine, but that means I need to take a program away because otherwise she's overseeing more programs that she qualifies at a higher level than not. So then I have to get rid of a program.
Yes, Brian.
So Janelle does really well holding her own, but what I wanted to help explain a little bit more was the difference in DSS positions and health department positions. Because they are quasi-state, those job descriptions are reviewed by Office of State Personnel. For county jobs, we would look at those. We did those through the MAP study. Now, they looked at these jobs in the MAP study, but they only looked at the salary ranges to see if they're compatible because the state really doesn't care about that. But the state has complete control over the job description. They give us the job description that reads, this is what that person does. So if it were a normal county job, we would look at it. We would say there have been some changes. We would bring that either during a salary study or we would bring it to you on our own. Just say, we've studied it. Here's what they say. This is where it needs to be. And we would have control over bringing that to you. You would have the up or down on that as well. For the state, it's a little bit different. Because the state controls those job descriptions, the health director writes a change that says, this is where they're currently functioning. This is what they are now doing. OSHR looks at it. They either agree or they don't agree. And they say, yes, the position should be this now. And then it comes to the board for approval. So that's the difference in how those jobs are looked at. And essentially the state is saying that under their rules and regulations, under their job description, this position meets that and should be at that point. And of course, what Janelle is saying is if I can't continue to allow that person to work and do those jobs without them being in the correct classification. And if they're not, then we need to adjust that job description down so that, or take some of those duties away. We want folks to be paid for what they're doing and be classed appropriately. And because they're quasi-state, and DSS and health department are that way because they're funded through state dollars and they have control through that. It's a little bit different.
Does the state pay part of this?
Oh,
If we,
sorry, this position is part state funded, yes, sir.
so any increase would be,
40% of this position is state funded.
so the increase would be 40% would be state.
Well, I mean, tit for tat, I guess we could operate, but we would have to change the budget from what was just approved. Because to my knowledge, it would be an increase that 4,963 in county dollars.
This is only the county dollars.
Yes. But also, I will also add a side note that both the grant I'm working on and the grant that this actual said person is working on the goal is to supplement fully her and save the county all that money as well. Is to supplement all the county dollars that are associated is our goal.
Yes, Commissioner Booth.
I understand that this is state personnel. How long have the lady been doing this job?
5 years.
And all of a sudden she got to be reclassified.
No. So with the change in the opioid and substance misuse, that's changed.
Isn't this one of those positions that we use some of that ARPA money to fund?
ARPA? No.
Yes. All right. When she been doing this job for 5 years, the state just looked down and said she's doing more than she should be doing. Is that correct, or did you send it to the state?
I sent it to the state.
Well, why did you wait 5 years?
Well, at the beginning, like I said, the substance misuse wasn't as it is now. So before she was just faithful families, then it added on tobacconization, and now with the development of other job duties and classification or responsibilities, it evolved.
I'm a firm supporter of employees.
Yes, sir.
But this kind of action is what got us in trouble years ago that we tried to correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a problem, even though the state is doing 40%. Pitt County just raised their sheriff's salary.
Mm-hmm.
Should we do it because they do it? Probably yes. Craven County done it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem I have with it.
I understand. Yes, sir. I would also say that when I first looked at this job classification months ago, so the fall, the last time I came up here to do a reclassification, I thought the instruction that was given to me was to put it in the budget so that it wasn't in the mid-year. So I did do that. But the reason I am up here again is to fight for just what you're saying. I get it, that coming up here, submitting it, coming back. But the reason I am here is to create that same platform, because right now I have a new employee that, because she was a public health educator too, has only been here a year, is making more than this said poor person who's been here almost 5 years. So I am trying to right those wrongs by this classification.
So Commissioner Booth, I hear clearly what you're saying. Some of the issues that we ran into were compression issues that we were trying to address through the salary studies. And that was caused by bringing people in and putting them in the same grade, the same pay, and lumping them in there and not spreading them out based on their education and experience and their job duties. So that was part of the reason we had such compression and why those salary studies helped us spread that out a little bit and solve those problems. I would push back a little bit to say to you that it's not us bringing appropriate descriptions and appropriate classes that caused those issues before. It was not applying those as they should have been, in my opinion. That was before I was here. I did it. I've done it a little differently since I've got here. And I'll just tell you, and we've tried to adjust that, but I don't think that what Janelle's bringing to you is what caused any of that prior. So I would support her recommendation to you.
Commissioner Langley.
Okay, I did hear you say that you were applying for a grant and that 2 grants, and if you were successful in achieving those grants, that this salary would be covered.
We would be supplementing this salary as well as part of our counselor salary, as well as hiring that other counselor I mentioned. It's a relatively big grant. And we're going for 2 different ones, so if we didn't get one, hopefully the other one would come through is our goal.
And the time frame for the grant, how many years?
3,
3 years.
yes, sir.
So basically, if this were approved, for 3 years, the county would not have any extra money in it, but at the end
That'd be
of
the goal.
but at the end of 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have a question of Janelle? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the recommendation.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the recommendation, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Is there a suggestion on which program to remove from the commissioners?
You gonna do the grant, you won't let them move none.
Well, in the time being, I mean, I have a feeling, and I'm just asking for guidance because I haven't had this situation before. So with this, no,
I
sir.
did too. I thought it failed.
Motion failed.
Now it failed.
Oh, okay.
Did it not fail?
Yeah.
3 to
Failed.
4.
I was
3 to
just looking
4.
for guidance on what to do from an employee standpoint. If they're not getting paid to do the job that they're currently doing, I was looking for guidance from you guys about what to do with that.
I would say, don't you have a board?
I do have a board.
Okay, I
get
would,
to
I
that.
would suggest between Brian and your board,
Thank you.
discuss it. Thank you. Okay, next is approve the state drinking water reserve funding change orders. Christina? Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Starting on page 164 of your agenda book is regarding information regarding our current chlorine conversion capital projects for the water department. If you will recall, last month I was here speaking of the Gaylord Booster Pump Station, Brady Valve Station. So we've got that project taken care of. So now I'm going to speak about the 5 projects that deal with the chlorine conversion. Again, if you'll recall, we were awarded funds from the State Drinking Water Reserve. That was a combination of both grants as well as 0 interest 20-year loans. All of these projects have been awarded and they're currently at different stages of completion. However, in order to finalize the projects and to put the new equipment into operation, we do need to revise the scope of work that needs to be done and issue change orders to the contractors. Based on all of the original budgets, the funding agency was contacted for authorization to use the remaining funds that were in the original budget, and they have given us tentative approval to do that. On June 24th, the Water Committee unanimously approved presenting the above change orders to the full board for approval. Additional funding is not required, and only District 5 requires a budget amendment to reallocate the funds. Each of these change orders, contain some of the same items, but then there are a few that have little minor things that are individual to the specific locations. But it's generally including projects on the north side of the river. We've added a second chlorine conversion a chlorine injection pump. That was not included in the original scope of work. The engineers did not include it, but it does need to be there for redundancy because these chlorine injection pumps can lose prime frequently, and so they need to automatically switch over to a secondary pump. A second pump was included in the ones on the south side, so that was corrected before those projects were bid. Also, the SCADA system is the main component of these change orders, because what occurred when McDavid and Associates did the original design, the intent was to just make minor changes to our existing SCADA system and be able to tie the new skid and the new pumps into the existing SCADA system. However, by the time the project went through the approval process with the funding agency, went through the bid stage, through the award process, and then getting through the submittal process and purchasing the equipment and starting the project, there were components in our existing SCADA system that were obsolete and that could not be replaced. So this is going in and updating and changing our SCADA system so that we would be able to tie these projects in. Again, when you look at the projects or the table that's listed in the middle of page 164, you'll see the values for each of the different districts. So again, the values that would come from state funding. We would not be required to use county funds in order to replace this portion of the SCADA system.
Questions?
Well,
Just bring me up to date. This is curiosity more than anything else. You said inject chlorine. This is chlorine hypochlorite, or what are we
Yes,
using?
sir, liquid. So we
We're-
currently are using gas chlorine and we're converting to the liquid chlorine.
But I thought that was all over with. We've been talking about this for 5 years.
Amen. Yes, sir.
That's why I was asking these questions. So we're going to a hypochlorite system altogether.
Yes, sir. We currently have one booster pump station that uses the liquid hypochlorite, which is the Plymouth Street booster pump station, the newest one that was constructed. So that we are currently using the liquid at that booster pump station. So staff is familiar with it and we understand that's the reason why we definitely know that we need a second pump.
There's something like ammonia, amine running around in my head. We're not into that.
We do inject ammonia.
We do. Okay.
And so we get the chloramine. So we do a combination. The majority of
Well, you
the
guys
year,
can't even talk about it.
probably 10 months out of the year, we use a combination of chlorine and ammonia to do the disinfection process, which is also called the chloramine.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
So when we do the disinfectant change, once a year is when we go back to only using free chlorine.
All right, thank you very much.
So there are various change orders for District 1 is Everhart Construction. District 4 and 5 are also Everhart, and District 6 and District 7 are Laughlin Sutton. The values, again, I'll just go back and summarize. For District 1, Everhart Construction, change order number 2, $175,600. District 4, Everhart Construction, change order number 3, $262,600. District 5, Everhart Construction, change order 1, $190,600. District 6, Laughlin Sutton, change order 1 and 2, $300,400. And District 7, Laughlin Sutton, change order 1 and 2, $150,000.
Other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the change orders and also the budget amendment that's attached.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. You want, oh, I'm sorry. Those opposed. I apologize. Ed? Okay, you want to tackle the repairs for the Beaufort Hyde Martin building?
Yes, sir. Funds were allocated to repair the exterior of the BHM library and the facilities capital improvement fund. The scope of work includes replacing damaged wood on the cupola and rebuilding the cupola as required. There's quite a bit of rot that's occurred up there. Also including scraping, painting the exterior trim, reglazing and repainting the windows, installation of new storm windows, and painting of the metal stairs. Staff requested proposals from various contractors, and most did not desire to bid on the work on this particular project due to the difficulties of the project. It's located in a congested downtown area. It's a very historic building. And it was just, they also had quite a bit of backlog work. So we had a challenge getting contractors to do that. We initially issued the RFP out to general contractors. We were hoping to get one contractor to do all of the work. But again, people did not want to do that. So what you have before you are two separate proposals we received from contractors. The first is from A.R. Chesson Company. They provided a proposal of $39,600 to complete a portion of the work. What they would be doing would be completing the repairs on the cupola, including the painting of the cupola. Scaffolding would need to be erected to provide a safe work area for both the contractors and the public. This is the largest part of this contract, is they are having to contract with the scaffolding company out of Raleigh to come in and to erect the scaffolding. Because of the location of the BHM library on the corner of Market Street and Second Street, and the overhead power lines that are there, and they just are not able to get in and to work on it like they need to be able to get in and do it in a safe manner. You can't put ladders up. You can't use a scissor lift to go straight up, because then you can't get over to the cupola to work on it. And also because of the delicate condition of the roof that's on the BHM library. So again, there are a lot of issues dealing with a building that has as much age on it as that building does. So because the proposal exceeds the 29 or exceeds the $30,000 purchasing limit, the Board of Commissioners approval is required in order to award this contract to A.R. Chesson. Also included in this is also just to show you that the other work, Torres Painting provided a quote to complete the exterior painting of the building. And as well, not just the painting, but reglazing of the windows, which again, that has become very specialized work, not something that a lot of people do and or want to do. It's very detailed work in order to do that.
At some point, unless we're talking about wood on this, at some point we'll probably redesign that cupola and do a vinyl cupola, something that doesn't have to be painted and
Sorry.
Can't use,
because of the historic.
Yeah, historic.
you gotta use real wood. Maybe cypress. Yes. Were you finished? Okay.
Because of the historical nature, last time I was up there, there's actual carvings. So will that be monitored to make sure they stay?
She's not been up there, Randy.
I know, oh yes, I have.
Oh, you have? I'm
Very
sorry.
few buildings that I
I'm
have
sorry.
not been on the roof and in the attic of. Up inside the cupola, I'm not 100% sure how we'll deal with that. There are some carvings that are in it. But if the wood's rotten, I can't save it. So I don't know if we'll do some clad, but again, I'm not
But
100% sure.
You could at least harvest it so
Oh,
that
we
it can
would
be.
save it.
Yeah.
If there's any wood that has carvings on it, it's not going in a dumpster, but I'm not 100% sure where I would.
And it would take somebody to know what it is. I mean, it just looks like chicken scratch in some cases.
Some it does,
Yeah.
yeah, and some you can read quite clearly. It's pretty,
Right.
it's actually a treasure that's in this county.
It is.
People are not able to see.
Now, another question, will the windows be in working order when they're done?
This is not, no, that is not included in this project.
So you're not gonna
We are
redo
not
the weights
totally-
and the balances and all of that?
No,
Okay.
sir. No, sir.
Well-
We're not refurbishing the windows. We are just trying to get them so that, it's more weather tight and not rattling. But no, sir, I'm not planning on taking out the gates.
I put those storm windows on there probably 50 years ago, and there's really nothing wrong with them. So a little cleaning, a little greasing, and definitely paraffin wax would get them working again. Is that a consideration?
The windows.
Storm windows,
The storm windows.
right.
We're looking at some of them. There are some issues with it because of the way they have been used and taken care of. So, I mean, we're looking at each one to see, but the storm windows themselves don't have any historical value.
No, but they're approved by historical
Yes,
committee, yeah.
yes.
No, they were installed right. They've been there 50 years.
They've stayed there, that's right.
The last thing is, I see about the glazing after the painting. The glazing should come, the glazing before the painting. The glazing should come after the painting because that raw wood, the oils get pulled out of the glazing. And if you paint it first, it stops that from happening. The glazing would last about a year or two before it starts falling out again. So that would be my only thing, my suggestion, and you can look into that, but that's the way I've always done it. I'm very familiar with glazing and that
Right.
sort of thing.
Then we'll go back and look at that. And I'm, the way that it's written here, I'm not sure.
It said
How that was-
glazing and then painting, but I would paint it and then glaze it, and then you need to paint it again.
Well, I was gonna say, I think that was the intent, because once you glaze, you don't have the raw glazing. You go back and paint the glazing to paint.
And the glazing needs to crust over before you paint it. So it's a long battle to get this thing right.
It is.
But if you do it right, it lasts forever.
It'll last a few years.
Well, it lasts a long, long time.
Sorry, I'm hoping it lasts fast.
Until Randy dies. Yeah, lifetime. Yes.
The contract has been awarded. Was the scaffolding included in the bid process? You said because of where the building is located, we have to get those scaffolding. Was that in the bidding contract?
No, sir. We do not dictate means and methods to the contractor. So we told the contractor what it is in the RFP we put out. We want someone to come to this cupola and do the repair work. So
And
it's up to the contractor to
they gave you
determine
a
how to
price
do it.
knowing that they couldn't hang on the side of that wall,
Yes, sir.
and we accepted it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the price of $39,600 does not include scaffolding?
Oh, yes, sir. No, it does. It does include the scaffolding.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That's,
But it wasn't in the original bid form, the scaffolding.
it was not a line item. Initially, when we looked at this and did the initial budget, I did not think that, I thought they would be able to do it with a combination of a lull, because you can go up and over, and I thought that they would be able to reach. The power lines are really what threw a monkey wrench into it. For them to be able to get onto all four sides of the cupola. They could get to the front from Market Street and they could get to the sides, but you couldn't extend far enough around and get on that. Because of the level of work that needs to be done, they couldn't get on the back side of that cupola and really do the work that's required without a stable platform to stand on.
Okay, it does not require additional funding, but because the contract exceeds the policy of $29,999, we have to approve the contract. So entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. Okay, next items are from the emergency services. So Chris.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners?
You want to start with the first one, and then we'll go right down the list.
Yes, sure will. So I believe the first one on your agenda is the vehicle replacement plan. So if you may recall from previous budget workshops, we have included in our current budget for this year that starts today, we were approved to replace 3 vehicles in emergency services, 2 in EMS and 1 in emergency management. One of those vehicles in EMS, we are not going to be replacing. So that was actually a replacement vehicle for the QRV in Blunt's Creek. But since you as a board decided to transition that truck from a QRV to a transport truck, there's no need to buy a replacement vehicle.
Excuse me 1 second. Please listen. Okay.
There's no need to buy a QRV for that. So I just wanted to share that with you as a board. I know you approved us for a budget to replace 2 EMS vehicles this year. We're actually only going to be replacing 1. And what you have before you in this agenda is the approval that we're seeking to proceed with the PO to purchase our remaining EMS vehicle as well as our approved EM vehicle. We're using the state contract on that, using the same vehicle format that's worked so well for us in the past, and that's the crew cab 4-wheel drive truck. That has just proven to be a very versatile package. Capital out of Wake Forest has a state contract for Chevrolet this year. They're at $52,400. As you know, in the past, we've done competitive shopping with local dealerships to try to match that price. And for these specs, we can't match that locally. So we're before you now with approval to proceed with a PO for the funding amount that's compliant with our requested and approved budget.
Okay, I've got a second.
There's two trucks
Two of them.
included for this, one for EMS and one for emergency management.
Okay, I got a motion. Is there a second? Okay, any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
The colors, the city has come out with a new definition of red, which quite frankly is not attractive. Can you, in the colors, if you use a red, use a vibrant live color like a carmine if it's red or a fire engine red instead of this maroon stuff that just looks horrible?
So our plan is to stick with our traditional white vehicles with our normal decal and striping on the side.
Okay.
So nothing elaborate for these vehicles. It's going to have our office logo on the front passenger and driver side door, as well as probably on the back tailgate, and it'll be white in color.
Okay, well, just be aware, any future purchases, of what the city's doing looks horrible.
Is NC State red okay? Is that, okay. All right. Commissioner Rimbo.
Is this EMS vehicle going to replace the Northside QRV?
No.
Okay, so what does it get used for?
This one, the EMS vehicle that we're.
Well, either that or the one it's replacing.
Yeah, the one that's currently replaced is used by our logistics captain, Brian Davis, who's also a part of our on-call staff and provides QRV response whenever we're encountering those influx of EMS calls as well as on the EM side.
So is this a QRV that's also used in a dual role?
Yes, it's a dual role vehicle. Yes, but it is not permitted with the state as a paramedic QRV. No, sir.
Randy.
Will the existing vehicles be surplus?
Yes, so we'll be getting rid of 2 high mileage Durangos. One we are looking at getting over to the inspections office. The other vehicle is going to depend on whether or not it's a worthy repair. So I have one of our Durangos that's currently out of service with what we suspect is a blown head gasket. And the last time we encountered this repair, it was somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000. So if we're waiting on the estimate for that, so that second vehicle may be a truck that we can have fixed and pass to another department for continued use, or we may just have to let it go as it is.
Anyone else? Okay. Did we get a motion? Did you make a motion there? Okay, did we have a second? All right. All those in favor of the purchase of the 2 vehicles per the recommendation, raise your right hand. Okay, you want to move to ECU Health?
Yeah, sure will. So over the last couple of years, we've sought funding to implement a community paramedic program in Beaufort County. This is an initiative that we've seen other eastern North Carolina counties have success in, particularly in bridging that gap to rural health care. Pitt County is probably the most notable that's had achievements through this program. We first approached this about 3 years ago with ECU Health and a grant opportunity. It was not fully funded, and we now have confirmation back from ECU that they're willing to fund that project with us moving forward. Now, community paramedic can have a very broad scope of work, okay? So for us, we would want to start that with targeting the patients that we know are frequent users of the 911 and EMS system. So whether that be frequency in EMS transport or frequency of attending the ED. One of the common things I'm sure you all have heard is just the wait times and number of people at our ED at any given moment. A program like this has shown to have some impacts on at least some of those repeat users, and that's what we would hope to target in this pilot year. The funding that ECU is awarding for us will allow us to provide the salary cost and operational cost of that position for 1 year. And as with any other grant program, and knowing your position as the board, anything beyond that obviously comes back for your approval. What we're hopeful of is that in this 1 year pilot program, it'll build its own case and show the justification and return on investment. So we're asking your permission to accept these grant funds from ECU and proceed with a pilot program of the Community Paramedic Initiative.
All right, Chris, looking at our records, I'm reading here 31 people who have used the EMS service 12 or more times in the calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
And then in addition to that, we had 135 people who utilized EMS at least 6 times during that same time period.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Both of those numbers are kind of staggering.
They are. So again, it's representative of how frequently or how much some of our citizens rely on the emergency medical care for their normal health needs. Right. So it's, I guess in those regards, it's typical for what you would expect in rural areas with just not having, whether it's a primary care doctor or someone that they can go to quickly. So the go-to answer then becomes 911 or the emergency room.
John just reminded, these are people that fell off the bed, could be. Following the floor.
It could be some of our, it could be, it could be a nursing home.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, he got to the point where he left his doors unlocked, so EMS could get in.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So what you'll be doing, you'll be exploring, I'm assuming you'll go in the home and you'll determine if some of these individuals are living by themselves.
So I'm gonna let Jeff speak to kind of where programs that we've seen like this and exactly what they do and the benefits those communities have.
All right.
Yeah, Mayor. The community paramedicine is unlike any other paramedic on a truck. As you know, we've got the trucks out there to transport. Pretty much it's simple as we stabilize them, get them in the truck, get them to the hospital. Sometimes that's not enough for some of the patients. Like Commissioner Rebholz said, somebody that falls a lot. Well, sure, we can pick them up, take them to the hospital 100 times. But the job of a community paramedicine is look at the resources and look at the core problem and find resources to help keep that from happening. And keep them whole, keep them there, and make sure that we're not overutilizing our trucks for something that we can find a resource to help with the core problem.
Well, historically, a lot of the high users have been diabetic, and it's been repeat diabetic. So what our person would do is go in and train these people and so-called oversee to make sure that they administer their
Yes, sir.
medications when they should.
At least, and even going so far as making consults with their doctor,
Yeah.
making sure they're keeping with everything.
Talk to their relatives,
Yes,
the whole thing. Now, if we get into this program, the plan of the hospital is to get us set up in this, see some benefits, and then abandon this so that we have to start funding this ourselves. Is that?
That's a possibility, and I know with our prior talking to you, the way we looked at getting this position put in place is taking one of our full-time staff, because one of the things with the community paramedicine is having that trust and building that relationship with the people he's working with. So it really needs to be one person, and what we're going to do is take one of our people off staff and backfill them with part-time people.
The person who has this job, they're going to have an office somewhere?
It will probably be at the ESC for right now. We don't know exactly where we're going to put them. They'll be limited in supervision and pretty much supervising themselves on a lot of stuff. And then just reporting to us on a bi-weekly basis.
That's how many they've seen and where the peak contenders are.
That way we can make sure we collect the data and make sure we're actually improving and doing a progressive job with it. And,
Well, the benefits to the hospital system, because they've been dinged, I thought they'd lose 1% of payments because of too many high return patients. So what the commissioners are going to have to do if we get into this is to tell the hospital, if you're going to have this program, you're going to continue your grant. Otherwise, we're not paying for it. So I don't want to see us get into something where we are providing more and more services off the taxpayer's hook when we don't have to.
There was one year at our conference, there were some counties out in the western part of the state that had implemented this, and they were talking about how successful they were and how many calls how the calls had decreased because of the contact that this person was constantly making with what they were calling repeat
porters.
Yes.
And how it cut way back on it, and it saved the county money as far as just wasting time picking up these people when there was really not a whole lot wrong with them. So I understand what you're doing.
I
think the real savings goes to the hospital because our costs are constant, no matter how many people we're seeing. And just keep in mind, the real benefit of this is to the hospital system, and they're the ones that need to be funding this.
And we're gonna try to do our due diligence in trying to reciprocate that grant year to year.
Well, we've been talking about this for 4 or 5 years. I've sat in on some meetings at least 5 years ago, I think. Yeah.
So our goal in this program is for the patient to be the beneficiary of all these services, not necessarily us or the hospital, but the patient to be the beneficiary.
Okay, we got a motion to approve and a second to approve the ECU Health Grant totaling $196,800. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. You want to move to your third item?
Yes, sir. So the third item is the mitigations or contracted services that we currently have for mitigation support. So if you recall, we have traditionally used the Mideast group for this type of support. We entered into a contract with them in July of 2021. 2 contracts. One is for our just general application or general support for grants. So in that particular contract, that was awarded to Mideast with a $20,000 kind of limit that they could operate within. And for that $20,000, they explored different grant opportunities that we should be applying for mitigation. They took care of the application process on our behalf. They kept all of our files current and all of those different management things for grant purposes. The second contract we had was for contracted or for mitigation support for our homes that were being lifted or mitigated as a result of Hurricane Florence. And from that piece, they, as the contractor, are allowed up to 5% of the total cost for managing that. So we've had 2 contracts with Mideast. Both of those were for 3-year terms. Both were set to expire the end of June of this year. So as for our normal process, whenever we're looking at renewing things like that, you solicit what's out there and who else is providing the services. And we did that starting, I believe it was April or May that we put that RFQ out. From there, we got 5 responses back. Mideast was one of them, but we had 4 other competitors that threw their name in the hats for our consideration in those as well. So from there, I'm going to step aside and let DC run you through kind of the scoring matrix of that, and of those 5 applicants, who rose to the top and why.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
So once we received the RFQ back, we went through a grading system of a scoring criteria. It listed everything that was in the RFQ, and we graded it diligently, and it showed. So out of those 5 we've got, 3 scored okay and 2 scored really well. Out of those 2 that scored, 1 was a local and the other one was not local. The local that we're talking about is Insight Plan and Development. They are being used by multiple counties around us now. They're very successful in all their grants that they've been writing, whether it be for mitigation or other grants. So we have reached out to them as well, and they can do the same services as Mideast was doing for the same price. So with your support, we'd like to use Insight Plan and Development for our mitigation support and general contracting services.
Yes. Yes.
I understand, and I'd like to go along with your recommendation, but Mideast is right up the street from here. And if we ever had any bad service with them, and they can do the same scope of work, I wish that we would stay with Mideast. But I understand that this is a vote process and the majority rules. It's not always right, but it rules. And I understand that. But I would love for us to stay with Mideast.
DC, because I recently, in the last 30 days, have had a complaint, even with a new one. What is the appeal process if the homeowner is unhappy with the work?
So the appeal process through the state, they would start with because this is the HMGP project, of course. They would have to start with, like, it would be Mideast, and Mideast would send it to the state, would be the project manager, would be John Bordeaux, and that would go to Steve McGugan with the state. That's how the process would be.
Would the new one be the same way? Would it be the same process? Okay, I got you.
We have other contracts with Mideast.
Is that coming in on the mic? Is it? That's $50. $50. Y'all lock the doors when the meeting's over. Get it?
We have other contracts with Mideast. I mean, we're familiar with Mideast. They really haven't done us bad on anything that I know of. As far as Mideast itself is concerned, the contractor complaint I think that you're referring to is something that a contractor did rather than something that Mideast did.
Yeah, I get that. I was just wondered if the appeal process was the same for both parties.
Yeah, so, I kind of rather stay with Mideast myself.
Okay, we need to take some action.
You did say it's the same price, right?
Yes, sir, same price.
The same
You're not
price.
saving anything.
I move that we award the contract to Mideast Commission.
Okay, we got a motion. Is there a second?
I want to clarify the price piece though. So for currently Mideast, under their mitigation support contract, they have a $20,000, basically a blanket PO that they work through to that, okay? And part of the RFQ that we sent out, we asked for fee schedules, right? How much, if for different services, how much do you charge for a particular fee? That was one of the things that the Insight provided and Mideast did not. I'm being transparent, right? So, and as we look at what Mideast or what Insight is providing to other counties, for example, the Craven County, correct me if I'm wrong, what were all the grants that they wrote for that $8,000 invoice?
For the $8,000 invoice, they did the final complete brick grant. They also did the FMA for the 2024. They did the Gold Leaf, they did the Tiger Dam, and they did one more grant through GIS complaint.
So when we're talking about price, I just want to be clear. Insight will charge us by whatever work they're doing. They charge us by the job. So if they don't operate under 20,000, they say, okay, what do you want us to do? And this is how much it costs. Mideast is opposite. Mideast says, I'm going to give you $20,000 worth of work. So it's just a different way kind of billing. And what we have found is the success of Insight on those grant programs is good. And our counties around us are having some benefits from it.
So Mideast will not write your grant, but they will review your grant. And that's even what they said in the RFQ. Where Insight has grant writers. They also have recovery specialists that can come in and help you get your money quicker. They have their resources that they have and their bench depth is a lot deeper as well.
But since I made this motion, I would like to table this and you bring in your fee schedules from both of these outfits and let's see what we're looking at. Because we don't know what we're looking at.
Yeah, do you have a spreadsheet with the scoring?
Did you send it to me?
Okay, well, we got to, you motion?
I'll recant my motion and ask to table the issue till the next meeting.
Okay, we got a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we got a second. Okay, all those in favor of tabling it till the next meeting?
Is there a time issue on this?
So right now, effective yesterday, we are expired from our current contracts. Now, what that means is by our current contracts, so these houses that are currently in the work, the one that you just referenced, Mideast can continue to do that function for those homes if they choose to. They're not obligated to by contract. If they choose to, they can. So I'm just saying that you're right, but that's not for me. That's not for me to answer on their behalf.
Where's this stuff go from?
Insight?
Yeah.
They're based out of Wilmington.
They have a place in Wilmington and one in Goldsboro.
And the second runner-up in our scoring process was a company called IEM. They're essentially a U.S. wide. They operate in all 50 states and all the U.S. territories. their closest office was Raleigh, is that right? And that was just essentially a small office that met the mailing criteria.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to table to the next meeting. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor of tabling it to the next meeting, understanding the contract stopped. I guess our risk is we can't do anything with a new one during the next 30 days.
That's correct. So
Okay.
until we resolve this and enter into a new contract with someone, we're going to be at a holding pattern for our mitigation work or any grants that come up between now and then.
Okay.
They got the complete ones that started, don't
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
That's what I would do.
okay. All right. All those in favor of the table, raise your right hand.
And just so we're clear to what you would like us to bring back next time, you're particularly interested in the fee schedule and what each of these firms were going to charge us for certain functions. Am I right on that?
Right. Well, and also I'm interested in the scoring. Anything that you've got on the spreadsheet that we can see,
Sure can.
that would be great.
And I think there's 3 firms mentioned. There was 1, 2, and 3. There's a Raleigh firm, there's a Wellington firm, and there's our local firm, Mideast. So we're really talking about 3. Are we talking about 3 firms?
Five presented, 5 responded to our RFQ. So we're talking about scores for 5 different firms. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
And if the board, we have that, I just don't have it in front of me and I can't recall it from memory. So if it's something you want to talk about later tonight, I'm certainly open to it.
No, yeah. Okay, you want to go to the next item, the Chocowinity EMS request
Yes, sir.
to
Sure will. So-
re-enter county EMS billing.
So a quick recap, in 2020, Beaufort County began an initiative to go to countywide billing. And at the time, that was intended to help the agencies with the billing process and make us eligible in a better position for Medicaid reimbursement for some call costs that we could apply both state and federally with. So in 2020, all of our county transporting agencies opted in on that. In 2022, Chocowinity EMS, as they merged with the town, elected to pull out from countywide EMS billing, and that changed their reimbursement rates for their calls. Since then, and going through Chocowinity's restructure, the town of Chocowinity has asked for permission to re-enter the countywide billing efforts, and that is why we're bringing that before you tonight for decision. We do have Derek here, or Captain Myers from Chocowinity EMS, who could answer any questions related to Chocowinity and the reasoning for their request to re-enter. So we do have him here to answer those questions.
I'm going to start the questions by asking, our existing EMS contract, is there language in there as it pertains to billing, where the county does the billing? No language at all.
So our existing EMS contract with our contracted agencies to, so Aurora, Broad Creek, Pinetown, Chocowinity, Washington, does not have a requirement that they participate in in EMS billing. It does not have verbiage that addresses EMS billing. That was left up to the agencies.
Okay. But my question is, we don't have any protection on our side. We sign somebody up and then they pull out and then they come back. I mean, it appears to me that our contract should be amended so that any of these, regardless of who it is, that there's some language in there that ties them into the billing so that people don't jump ship, after they sign up for it.
Certainly all things we could look at including revised contract with the agency.
Well, it's more important than that, too.
Okay, Commissioner Rebholz.
The other piece of it would be that we are, in case there is anything that comes up where the county could be held responsible, there seems to be a need for some sort of indemnification as part of that.
I see what you're, give me a little bit more detail. Like, what concern would you have there?
In most, if you get into lawsuits, people are going to sue everybody that they can sue.
That's right.
Okay. And obviously we have deeper pockets than the other agencies around here do. So, but if it is the responsibility of the billing agency that's causing the problem, wouldn't we want to have some indemnification clause that protects us?
So by the billing agency, I'm assuming that you mean the company that we use to
No,
process
I mean-
our billing? Or
No, I'm talking about the EMS agency.
Okay. What you're saying makes sense and something that we should look at.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand, in this particular case, if we shouldn't take the opportunity to look at the whole picture.
Well, my memory when this issue came up before was that as these contracts came up, that we were going to put what Frankie is requesting in those agreements, that we were going to require them to use the billing system. That way we know more about what's going on, because obviously we've been clueless about what's going on in Chalkawinity. They had a $500,000 didn't pay overhead, workman's compensation, et cetera, for employees. I don't know how that was resolved, but and I don't know whether the county paid that or whether it came to the county, but it wasn't our baby.
So if I could offer this in regards to contracts, yes, I agree that our current contracts with our contracted agencies, both fire and EMS, have room for improvement. It's something that we've talked about a lot over the last year. We've actually drafted some changes. With EMS specifically, we shared those drafted changes with the captains in a captain's meeting a month and a half ago, just to make sure we were in line with all of our conversations that we had had so far. My recommendation would be, once we get that back from the captains, we carry that to the oversight committee. The EMS Oversight Committee is the group that works on your behalf to evaluate things like that. So maybe that would be the appropriate setting for reviewing our current contracts and what should be included and what shouldn't, and where's that best merge. Is maybe we lean on the EMS Oversight Committee to help give some guidance on that as well. But I do agree, our contracts need to include more than what we've got. We need to update them. And just how to move forward is where I am.
All right, Commissioner Booth.
Chris, how long do you anticipate that happening, that you can present that to your advisory board?
Oversight meets the 20th of this month. So, could we have a contract back by August? If what we currently have drafted is a good start, it's possible. If not, I would say it's September for sure. At least be able to come back and have a conversation with you, and here's the recommendations and things that the group would like to have added or changed.
Well, I hate to put you on the spot here, but don't you think it would be best that we wait if we're doing this oversight, because they might not want to join your team or our team?
Yes, I think our conversation may have squirreled here a little bit, because we spent a lot of time talking about contracted EMS services, our contracts that we have with our independent agencies. And if we want to include things like countywide billing in it, we certainly can. But I believe the request that Chalkawinity has is different than what we're talking about with contracts.
They just want to use the billing system that we have now.
They want to come back under our umbrella of countywide EMS billing, which means, I think the manager has been.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, let me back up just a little bit. So, just kind of the facts around the whole thing. Several years ago, when Medicaid reimbursement, the Medicaid cost settlement program was put in place, right? Y'all remember that? The Association of County Commissioners had somebody who was doing that for us. But you had to be a county agency or a municipality to get funds from that. So we were getting funds for that, but our volunteer agencies, our 501c3 agencies that we were contracting with, our EMS agencies, were not eligible for those funds. So they could not get Medicaid reimbursement money at the end of the year when those cost settlements were done. So in an attempt to try to help them, we went and said, and we brought it to the board, we said, we'd like to bring them under our umbrella, put them in our billing system. That way we're all viewed, they're viewed as a whole system. And then all of us will be eligible for Medicaid cost settlement reimbursement. So it was our attempt to try to help the EMS billing agencies. Back in when Chalkawinity EMS ceased to be a 501c3 and rolled up underneath the town, they said, we're going to pull out. We want to do our own billing. They had some issues with timelines. There was concern about the percentage that we were taking because we were managing all the paperwork and doing all that. And they were told very clearly up front the impacts of what that will do to your billing. They pulled away from that. There's another agency in our county, the city of Washington, does their own billing. So we did that initially to try to help. And our concern over this is there's some instability right now with the town of Chalkawinity. And our recommendation is that you not move them back under. I'm not saying don't eventually, but let the town of Chalkawinity stabilize with their financial stuff before you do that, is our recommendation to you.
Has the town of Chalkawinity passed a resolution asking for this?
So I had a conversation with the mayor because this got put to an agenda, and I called the mayor and I said, my understanding is your department head is coming to speak to the board about this. Is that with the blessing of the city council? And he said, yes. We directed the EMS captain, Captain Myers, to come and speak on our behalf. So yeah, I don't know whether they've done a resolution,
okay,
but he indicated to me that their board was fully behind this request.
So at the last town commissioners meeting, I'm the one that made the request. The board didn't make the request. I'm the one that made the request to the board to get the blessing from the board, in which they did give me the blessing to come and speak before y'all tonight.
Well, I serve on the EMS oversight, and we've had some discussion, and I'm not sure whether this is in the contract or not. But one of the concerns that I have as a commissioner, this is me speaking, serving on the EMS oversight, and I have voiced that, is that we're getting budgets from people, and those budgets are not what I consider to be enough information for us to make a decision. What we should be looking at is we should be looking at actual information for at least 3 years, 2 to 3 years. And that includes a balance sheet as well as the revenue and expenses. You know, we were caught off guard. I was caught off guard. I don't know about anybody else, but I was caught off guard when I found out the liability that the 501c had as it related to withholding taxes. That's a balance sheet item. It's not on the income and expenses, which is the only thing that we ask for in the budget process. And I'm not picking on Chalkawinity because I'm concerned about on anybody that's out there. Because without having actual information, we can't see any danger, any financial problems coming at us. And I realize it's a contract and it's a third party with a 501c, some of these. But I'm sort of like the manager. I don't know what the exposure would be. I know that we're open for an audit as it relates to this. And I don't want to see the county drug into some kind of audit that means that we have to cough up any money. But I also understand what it means to you on the revenue side, Dexter. So I'm kind of torn in between. I'm just giving you my opinion.
Well, I think that I understand what the manager's saying, and I'm certainly willing to go with his recommendation. We're not saying never will we take you in, but this is not the best time. There's several lawsuits yet to be resolved, and we don't need to become entangled in this until the waters get clear at Chalkawinity about which way money's flowing and whose pocket it's going in or has gone in.
If we ask the town of Chalkawinity for actual information as it relates to EMS for the last 3 years, balance sheet information and revenue and expenses, can the town of Chalkawinity give it to us?
My honest answer that I can give you tonight until they have the 3 audits done. The first audit is supposed to be completed, I was told by the end of last month, early part of this month. Until they done, I would say it's not going to be 100% accurate. What I can tell you is that the town did hire a contractor that was recommended by the state. This lady has been
50.
This lady has been very actively building the books back. And that's why they haven't had the audits yet, because the books are not right. So this lady has been very hard working on that so that they can get the audits done. What's been explained to me is once they get the first audit done, the next two are going to be a lot easy. But the first one, the lady had to build from scratch. So that's why it's taking so long. So for me to say that tomorrow I can give you 100% of the information that you requested, I'm going to say no. And that's just me personally talking from what I know. What I can tell you about the payroll taxes, that was back when it was Chalkawinty EMS Incorporated. Them payroll taxes, to the best of what I was told, was the secretary also was an employee of the town. And that's the reason why the town actually paid the disclosed number for the payroll taxes. Actually, the payroll tax was a lot more than $500,000, but with the negotiation of the attorney that they got it to reduce down to the $500,000. Other than that, that's all I can tell you about, because a lot of that was done before my time. I can personally tell you from since I've been there, I know Commissioner Richardson, I know you referenced to employees not showing up to work. I promise you, if you go check, I give a lot more to Chalkawinty. I'm trying to make it right. But you know, there's a lot of stuff that I'm taking baby steps on correcting. So I'm trying my best. I'm the one that went to the board. The board didn't ask for me to come here tonight. I'm the one that asked them to give permission, because at this point, with us losing the $100,000 of the truck going to Blunt Street, the only way that we ever going to generate any extra revenue to have a 911 truck would be to go back into the county building. Other than that, we're going to be limited on generating any more revenue to operate. So that's why I was here.
And I appreciate your honesty in what you're saying. I've known you a number of years, and I know that you give it everything that you've got.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate what you're doing too. I appreciate you saying that. But we've got a rat's nest. The rat's nest, we haven't really started going through the rat's nest at Chalkawinty yet from the standpoint of the county finances, because I know of 3 pots of money that were invaded at Chalkawinty, and maybe more, and you're not going to know until these audits are finished. If you go to the courthouse, which I have personally done, and look at the indictments are for, there's 3 or 4 for more than $200,000 a piece. And then there's a wide open indictment that says $700,000, and we don't know how much more. So we don't know how much money is involved in this. We need to do the audit process, possibly let these people stay on their own as the manager has recommended. But as soon as the audit process is over and we can see clear, I don't have a bit of problem with letting them go back on the system.
You said that you think that the first audit will be completed. It should be completed now, or either be completed in the next week or so.
That's what I've been told. And I'm just going off the information that I've been given. So I can't 100% say that it's going to be completed next week, but that's what they've told me at the meetings.
And then after that, you're saying that the next 2 audits will be a lot quicker, because then you have a foundation for the audits. And so my question is, and I don't know if you can give me a definitive answer or not, is that by the time that we meet in August, do you feel that Chalkawinty will be close to having the answers in those audits?
Well, I think the way the process, and Brian, you correct me, and Anita, once these are reinstated, the audits are done, I think the local government commission has got to sign off on it. I mean, I would assume.
Yeah, from what I understand and what I've read online, and I looked at their audit reports last week, the last audit I see for Chalkawinty is the 2021 audit. So they've got to do their 2022 fiscal year into 2022 and 2023. They're 2 years behind. And now, of course, we just finished 2024 that we're starting to work on that audit. So they've got 3 audits to complete. And I'm assuming that when he says they're almost done with one, that's probably the 2022 audit. So they've still got the 2023 to do, and it takes months to do an audit.
Yeah.
And the 2024.
Well,
Let me just say one thing. Be aware of this, even though the first audit is the hardest one to do and thread your way through. I understand that. I appreciate that. Be aware that when someone is manipulating several pots of money the same time by the same person, you can wind up in a situation where they come back and say, the first audit wasn't that good. We've discovered something else. We got to go back and change that. So don't get too carried away with this thing, because it is a rat's nest. It has to be a rat's nest in order for the amount of money to be stolen that was stolen.
Well, I want to correct the comment about stolen. I've been around a long time as a banker, and I can tell you, when a business has cash flow problems, they will use any source that they can to meet that need. And paying employees is number one on the list. So if you don't have cash in the right account when it comes time to write checks on payroll day, you will take it from another account. And what I think, what my observation is that when you look at EMS expenses, even at the county level, somebody has to subsidize that. Your tax money and your billing is not enough to fund 3 trucks. So that money was available, and somebody says, at the time, we'll use that to make payroll. And that's how that account kept going up. So they didn't have a general fund like we have to subsidize it. So they were subsidizing it with money that was supposed to be sent to IRS. Now, if you look at a balance sheet, if the board was looking at the balance sheet on a monthly statement, that amount should be the same every month until you have salary increases or start adding additional employees. So somebody on the board that was looking at that on a monthly basis did not ask the question or did not trail that as it went up. You don't get to where they got in 1 month or 1 year. It was over a period of time. So I don't know that saying the word stolen is right. I think it was mismanaged. And the same thing has happened when it's going to the town. When you look at the budget for last year, with the budget that we got, was for roughly 10 months of actual and 2 months of projection. And that showed that you were short over $300,000. The taxpayers in the town of Chocowinity had to pay for that with their general fund balance, just like the Beaufort County citizens has to do when we subsidize the EMS.
Well, but with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, why does the indictment have a person's name on it for fraud?
Well, I just want to make sure that my observation, I'm not the judge, the attorney, or anything. I'm just trying to tell you from a businessman's point of view, whether you operate an EMS, farming operation, or a place on Main Street. When it comes time to meet your payroll, you got employees waiting for that check.
Yes, sir.
Waiting for that check. John?
Yeah, I don't think we're the court of law here to make those type of decisions. That's why they have courts of laws.
The indictment is a fact.
Well, the indictment's a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, so how much would additional revenue come in per month, say?
So what I can tell
If you
you
were
is,
a county building.
so we use the same billing company that the county uses. We've been using them ever since it was Chocowinity EMS Incorporated. What I can tell you is that I had my billing guy to pull a report, and from that report, that was July of 22 till June the 4th. There was 279 Medicaid calls, and let me make this clear first. In 279 Medicaid calls, that was 911 and transport, because we had it all lumped together, so that's not separated. But it was 279 calls during that time frame. In that time frame, the county's rate, what they gave me was $2,089.95. Chocowinity rate was $606.98. The billing revenue underneath the county would have been $583,096.05. And the revenue underneath the town of Chocowinity was $169,347.42.
You cut off their nose despite their face.
So there's, and we don't know whether that's transport or 911.
No, Now, during that time frame, it was combined together.
Right.
Them 279 calls. Now, what I can speak to, and I'm just telling you what I can speak to, from what I was told. And that's all I can speak to you guys about. I can't tell you what I know. If I know it for myself, I can tell you I know it. I'm just telling you what I was told. I was told that when it came to pulling away from the county, it was the issue of getting checks. They said sometimes the checks was taking 3 to 4 months to get, and they needed the money. And that was one of the reasons why they pulled away from the county billing, is the checks that came from the county, and that's just what I was told.
Well, and I'm sure I believe you. You're telling exactly right. But anybody that works with finance has never heard of factoring doesn't need to be handling books for anybody.
Well, okay, go ahead.
So, so my discussion, that's why I was told that decided to pull away is because of the lack of getting the checks when they needed the money.
Okay. So do you think anything in that area has changed?
Like I say, I'm in the office now, and I've been familiar with these guys over here, and I think that I personally won't have an issue of getting what I need. Like I said, I only can go by what I was told.
Right.
It's a lot different when you go face to face, and I know for myself. So that's why I'm just telling you.
Okay.
What I was told is the reason why we pulled away is because we couldn't get the checks, because they couldn't get the checks when they need them. I'm the one, the board didn't ask. I'm the one that personally went back and asked the town board, because I've been doing this enough to know I see the only way we ever going to generate any more revenue to continue to do 911 in Chalkawinity is go back into the county building. So I'm the one personally asked.
So in your view, then, it is necessary for you to get back under the billing to provide the services to the people of the Chakawinity EMS district.
Yes, sir. Our current rate, I haven't looked at the July because I actually on vacation. I came back and drove all the way back so I can make sure I'll be here or not. But July 1st, we're supposed to get another rate. I haven't had a chance to look to our new rate. But our current rate as of today is at $700, $707 and some change. That's what our Medicaid rate is. Versus the county's rate is a little over $2,000. So, I mean, it don't take a rocket science to do the math. It's a no-brainer. I mean, we definitely need to be under the county billing. I mean, that's money that we're just leaving on the table.
Chairman. Yes. Let me propose this. I don't think that we have all of the information on the table that the commissioners need to make a decision. I would like to do a closed session with the manager and discuss this in a little more detail and then decide what we want to do. I fully agree, using the numbers that you presented, you've got to be back on county billing using those numbers, but there may be more things going on here that we need to know about.
Yeah.
Well, what is the risk? Go ahead. Okay, so a couple things, and first, let me, and I appreciate Chief Myers saying that is what he was told. The finance officer sitting next to me, she's the one who handles our books. She's the one who handles that billing program. I'll let her tell you firsthand what the issue is, or wasn't.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So the agencies receive 3 payments from the county for their operations under the consolidated billing. First of all, they get a portion of the district tax for the EMS tax for their agency. And that's distributed every month. We send out a 1/12 payment because the agencies came to us and said, you know, we can't wait until January when all the tax dollars come in. We need operational cash flow from as of July 1. So we send them a check every month for 1/12 of their estimated tax district payments. We true that up in about May before the end of the year at June 30th. To give them the true amount of what it was. That's the first revenue they receive. The second revenue they receive from us is their transport billing. Since we're under the consolidated billing, they withdrew from that in 2022, but the other agencies that are still in that, we get reports every month from Collington, which is our billing company. They're reconciled to distribute what portion to what agency. based on the transports made by that agency that month.
Excuse me. I'm assuming we're talking about emergency transport. We're not talking about non-emergency.
EMS, emergency. We issue checks monthly for that, every month. The thing that they don't get paid timely for is the third revenue, which is the Medicaid cost settlement reimbursement. And that is because of the state, not because of finance, because we write checks every week. And if I've got that request for payment in on Friday, that check gets written the next Thursday. The thing I don't have control of is that cost settlement, that annual report. It takes us months to gather the information from the agencies. We have to do the report. It has to go through 3 audits before we get a final settlement. We get a tentative, they do a desk audit, then we get a tentative settlement amount, and then they have to do a final audit before we even know what our payment's going to be. So I didn't feel like the county would want me to try to estimate what would be approved as the cost settlement and prepay the agencies ahead of time. So I just waited, and it might take 2 or 3 years to get that cost settlement resolved and get that money in. So that is the revenue that is lagging, but it's not the fault of the county or the finance office. It is because we're waiting on the state always, every year, for that money to come in. Sometimes 2 or 3 years we're waiting on it.
So the other part of that is it's also contingent upon our staff and upon the 501c3 agencies that we contract with to get their billing reports in a timely manner. So billing reports come into the system, they're reviewed, they're QA'd to make sure that they have all the information, then they're pushed up to the billing agency. The billing agency looks at them again to make sure they have all the information. If the information is not correct, if the insurance information is not there, if there's things like that they can't bill for, it gets kicked back. So it's incumbent upon the individual agencies and the individual providers to make sure that information is correct. So you may turn in 100 run tickets, and you've only got 25 of them correct, they're going to get kicked back, and your billing is going to go like this. Our goal, and we do a really good job of QA and our stuff to make sure that our folks have it correct. The concern that I have, is that every time we have a conversation with Medicaid, Medicare about our billing, it opens up a door that they may bring a whole team of auditors in here and spend a whole lot of time coming through our books and looking at everything, and then who knows what numbers look like. Sir?
Why would they do that? Just to get a conversation?
No, I'm just saying that anytime we add or subtract from the agency, when we first brought everybody under this, it took a long time, and we went through a lot of paperwork with the federal agencies to consolidate that billing. And I just don't want to mess that up. Chocowinity pulled out of this with eyes wide open. We told them, your billing's going to go down. They were advised of that because their reimbursement rate is based on the area they serve. So their transport distances are not as far as ours. So essentially they're saying we want to be under yours because you have longer transport distances as a whole so that we get more money. As Commissioner Richardson said, I'm not necessarily opposed to bringing them back in, but I am opposed to it right now. My recommendation to you would be not to right now. Things need to settle down. There needs to be some stability in that organization before we put our billing number back on the line. That's my concern, but it's this board's decision.
Yes.
Mr. Manager, is this one of these instances that you got that trailing liabilities?
I wouldn't necessarily say trailing liability. When you talk about trailing liabilities like hospital, that's somebody who may sue you because they were under 18. They may have some other things.
The money was misappropriated or some Medicaid billing was done wrong or something like that.
There's always opportunities to claw back money from Medicaid or Medicare anytime. Like Anita said, they'll do their desk audit, then they'll do a final audit, and they're looking at those numbers just as hard as they can because you got to remember, these are contractors that work for Medicaid and Medicare. They're getting paid by what they find. So they're going to scrutinize everything to make sure that we're doing it right. And in whole, we've not run into any issues.
Well, and what can happen to you is on an audit, when, as the manager says, when you're going through this, instead of getting a check, you may get a bill. That can happen. So you don't want that. And those are hard things to work out of. And, you know, I agree with the manager on this because what's going to happen, the court cases haven't been had yet. When the gavel comes down on the court cases, it doesn't matter whether anybody's convicted, win, lose, or whatever. You're going to see a bunch of auditors down in Columbia, South Carolina, which I think is where most of them come from, and they're going to swarm up here and say, oh, there's been Medicaid fraud, the lawsuit's over with, now we're going to jump into this, and you're subject to a whole new audit and a whole new look at things. So he's correct, and he's giving you good advice.
Well, gentlemen, we're not getting anywhere. I think we're at a position where we don't want to say no completely, but I think we're trying to say we need to take another month or two to kind of see where things are going before we take any action. Is that kind of where?
That's where I am.
Yeah.
Where we're at?
I'd make a motion that we table this for at least 30 days.
Well, yeah, I think it's gonna be longer than 30 days because of the trial, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, we get into if you're going to wait till that gets settled, that could be years.
Well, probably not. Probably not.
And we've also got the EMS oversight that's also looking at the contract.
But I agree with your motion. I'll second it.
Well, Randy had already seconded.
But I would amend that motion to include a look from the oversight committee and David about what type of thing we ought to write into the contract to protect the county.
Chris is doing that. He's coming back to us with a report, as I understand it, from the oversight committee, which will include the attorney.
Yes, there were some things that's already on the agenda for the next oversight committee. One was addressing what Chairman Waters was talking about as far as the budgets, the budget information that's provided to us each year by the agencies. So we can certainly continue that with what needs to be changed or updated in our current contracts to satisfy the concerns of the board. So that the oversight meets on the 20th. We should be able to provide an update to you by the August meeting, at least give you a sense of direction of where the conversation went and things we're working on.
Okay, we got a motion to table. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you very much.
Last thing I would like to say is to all the commissioners, I have an open door office policy at my office. If you want to know something, you need something, come to my office in Chalkawinity, we'll talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, gentlemen, we're going to take our 15-minute break. We're back from our break, and we're down to items for discussion. And Brian, you're up with broadband update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I had a request to give an update on current broadband projects. So you'll recall there are actually 3 different projects that are moving, or 3 different grant projects. There's the RDOF, which is Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, which is a federal grant project. You recall several years ago, that's a reverse auction. Charter Spectrum won that grant. The majority of the locations are on the south side of the river, total of 1,600 locations. The last we heard from them was they had built and released 249 of those locations. It originally was a 7-year build out. Now, since they partnered with that on the Great Grant, they've advanced it to the 2-year process, but we haven't gotten an update on them on how many additional locations they've released yet. Then there are the 2 great grants, which is the Growing Rural Economies with Access to Technology. We had the first one that was awarded to Charter Spectrum, or actually it was the second one. Brightspeed got the first one. And then we were lucky enough to get a second great grant, and Charter Spectrum got that one. So under the Charter Spectrum, again, it's a 2-year build out. They were going to locate 495 or serve 495 locations. Then under Brightspeed, their original great grant, again, a 2-year build out, 1,070 locations. And then the third one, well, let me give you where we are. We get quarterly updates from NCDIT, North Carolina Department of Information Technology. So 2024 Q1 under Charter Spectrum, they are showing their design and engineering is 25 to 75% complete. They don't have any fiber hung yet. So because this was a second great grant, it was a little bit behind Brightspeed. The Q1 of 24 for Brightspeed, They are at 25 to 75% complete on design and engineering. They have hung 13.1 miles of aerial fiber, and they have connected 311 households and 9 businesses so far. So they still, but it's a 2-year build out, but they still got a ways to go. The third program is the CAB program, Completing Access to Broadband program. That was one that the General Assembly put in place, kind of modeled after GREAT, where you were going to be required to match up against your ARPA money. As you'll recall, the board early on set aside $4 million of your ARPA funds to match up against broadband. So because of that, we were early in the CAB process. They selected Beaufort County early in the CAB process because a lot of the counties spent their money on other stuff. They didn't spend it on broadband. So we were one of the early counties initiating that and got under that program. As you recall, a couple of weeks ago, I sent you the notice letter from the state. They put out a request for proposals, and that has now been announced. They had an evaluation committee. The finance officer and I served on that, along with 2 members from DIT. They would not. Their general counsel would not allow elected officials to serve on that. So we went through the process. It was really strict. Non-disclosure agreements had to be signed. So we evaluated all those, and overall the selection was to Brightspeed under that program. Like I say, we sent that press release out to you. So that project will provide 2,518 locations to be served with fiber. And essentially what they did, their mapping group, and that's a list, Brandon just put it up. That's a map that shows the locations that Brightspeed will be serving under the CAB grant. What they did was they took their mapping group and they looked at all the unserved areas. So if you were not served by broadband and you didn't get picked up under RDOF, you didn't get picked up under GREAT 1, you didn't get picked up under GREAT 2, then they put that out to under CAB and said, help us find those. And essentially what they're showing us is 94.48% of the final or the remaining unserved locations Brightspeed is going to cover with this 2,518 locations. So we're getting really close. There's some additional, there's BEAD, there's some additional programs out there that we hope to be able to get involved in. And one of the nice things about CAB is that we got in on it early. And because y'all had committed those funds early, we told them we were committed on it. It's a $7.8 million project. Our match on that actually is probably not going to be required. There is a current Senate Bill 743 that's out there. You may have seen that in the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners recent update. That bill, Senate 743, which has passed the House but has gone back to the Senate and hasn't been taken up yet by the Senate, but they anticipate it will when they come back, would remove the county match requirement for CAB. The reason the state's doing that is because so many counties spent their money on something else instead of broadband. And the state has got broadband money through ARPA that they have to spend on broadband. And if they don't spend it on broadband, then they got to give it back to the federal government. So because there aren't enough counties out there who are forward thinking enough to say we want to do broadband, they don't have enough folks out there to match up with them. So they're going to eliminate the match and use state money to do it all. There's also a provision in the bill, thank goodness, we had a long conversation with them about it early on, that says the department shall utilize up to $190 million to provide the county project cost responsibility for the 37 counties that have committed to the department to participate in the program and provide the county match. So if the bill passes, then we're not going to have to put our match against it. So we'll have that money to be able to roll back and do other things with. So that was one thing good about moving forward as quickly as we did and y'all having this position where we were. So there also, you can look on the NC1 map. I looked today, CAB's not out there yet. Great Grant is out there where you can see the actual locations all across the entire state. You can go to any county and see exactly where they're down to the street level, where they're providing the address level, where they're providing that fiber. But CAB is not on there yet. They said their mapping folks were working on it to get it on there. But NC1 map under broadband, you can see all that. And that's kind of the update that we have so far on broadband.
Any questions for Brian? Brandon?
I know that nobody takes time to compliment, but I heard you say that we actually have houses hooked up to broadband. Has anybody called and said, "Wow, this is great"?
I haven't received a call yet, but I'm sure folks are saying, "Wow, this is great." When you're getting 100 meg up and 100 meg down, it's a whole lot better than dial up or whatever you got.
1 gig up and down.
Well, I hope they realize where it came from.
And they're hanging it in Washington on the poles. And there's ants all over the place going down 33 towards Aurora. It's all underground that way.
Hey, I understood that federal money that was coming down to the state, I thought they had to be buried. I thought they had to be fiber buried. It's not?
That doesn't have to be. It's got to be at least 100 by 100 symmetrical. That's
So it can be overhead.
And it has to be fiber. It can't be
Copper, any kind of.
well, it can't be copper or it can't be wireless. It's got to be fiber. Because with fiber, you put glass in the ground and you just change out the stuff on each end. It's essentially evergreen. But yes, they're hanging it, they're burying it, they're doing everything you can with it. The stuff you see in Washington also, I think, as you recall some of the conversations we had with Brightspeed, they committed to overbuilding their system to begin with. So they're doing some overbuilding anyway.
One of the things I did today was take a look. I went back through my files. I did a spreadsheet and I sent it to Anita, and we agree on most of it. We're down to trying. I've got to go back and look at my files because she says I got a number that's off. And so once we get it complete, Anita's going to send it to all the commissioners. That gives all of them, and I had even left off one. So. Okay, any other questions on broadband? You want to give us an update on Agape and Aurora?
Yes, sir. So I had a question regarding where we stood with Agape on the medical clinic in Aurora. Had a couple of meetings with Agape and their leadership team regarding that. Last meeting I had with them, they've identified a federal grant. They've gotten approval under a federal grant where they're going to have, where the feds have said to them they can use $557,000 of that grant for equipment. So new x-ray, furniture, everything to staff to upfit the building. Equipment wise, they are also, we've talked about going after a healthcare building reuse grant, like they did in Plymouth when they put a clinic in there. That of course is tied to jobs. You have to have, get a certain amount for each job. They're going to reach out to Golden Leaf to see if there's some opportunity there. They have had an architect and an engineer and a contractor look at the building. Their architect's been through it. Their engineer's been through it. Their estimate on bringing the building up to code and to where it can be usable is around $762,000. So what we propose to you is to come back in August. They're going to do a report to you. And I'll just tell you, I mean, we've had the conversation. Their request to you is going to be that the county pay to upfit that building, to put the building back in shape, essentially, if you let me finish. So is to put the building back in shape, which is about $762,000 to do that. Then they would put all the equipment in it and they would run it. Essentially what we would do, the proposal would be that we would transfer that property to them under the agreement that there's a deed restriction on it that says that if they don't use it for healthcare, if they cease using it for healthcare, the facility reverts back to the county. So you don't have any exposure there. So if it ever stops being a health clinic, it comes back to the county. We have funds in our healthcare reserve account in excess of $3 million, which is exactly what those funds are designated for, to help provide for healthcare in the county. And I would say to you, I mean, they're going to make the pitch to you. But this board has said you want to have healthcare in Aurora and in that area to help provide for the community. I think $762,000 out of your healthcare reserve fund is a good expenditure of those funds. You've got a stable client, a stable provider who's going to be there, who's going to do pharmacy, primary care, dental, OB, behavioral. They're going to do everything that needs to be done down there. and they're going to maintain it, look after it. Of course, I'm stealing some of their thunder, but we'll bring that back to you on August 5th. And unless something changes, you're going to get a recommendation for us that'd be a good thing to move forward with. So be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Has the grant been applied for reuse?
So not yet. That's something we're reaching out. We've had some conversations with Commerce about it. They've written one, a copy's written one before, like I say, for the Plymouth facility. And they've been successful with that. So we'll see how that shakes out. I mean, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight. So we'll go through that process. But we would certainly seek all those grant opportunities we could. Don't know. I reached out to Golden Leaf. I know they're reaching out to Golden Leaf as well. Don't know what Golden Leaf's appetite is for that. Sometimes they're more into equipment than they are hard structures. But we'll certainly tap that as much as we can if they're amenable to trying to help out. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Mr. Madden, have anybody reached out to our senators, legislators, congressmen? I mean, they got funds in health and human services and stuff to do all other things to it. Has anybody reached out, either Agape or on your behalf?
So we've not reached out to the congressional folks. We have reached out to them on some other things that we've talked about, the radio projects and getting some of those. Representative Kidwell has said that he's got to have some numbers before November. So obviously we would reach out to him and have some conversations with him about some opportunities that may come through state funding as they go back into working on budget. So
anyone else? You want to move to the County Commissioners Association legislative goals process?
Yes, sir. So last meeting, we had this on the agenda. You all are aware of the legislative goals process and what the NCACC does as they seek those goals. You got a copy of the goals handbook and the overview on how you submit those. At the last meeting, we laid all this out for you and just said, if there are goals that you would like to submit, think about them, think them over, bring them back to the board at this meeting, and let the board vote those up or down so that we can get them submitted. I've not received any specifically yet from anybody. I guess y'all may be holding those and ready to talk about them tonight. So I'll turn that back to the board.
Okay, the floor is open as it relates to recommendation. It has to come from the board. I think we have to have a resolution, and there's a format that we have to go through. Is a procedure. We have to do that by September the 1st, I believe is the date. September the 1st. I sit in on the Agriculture Committee, and trying to remember, it's two committees meeting together. And one of the things that we're trying to get changed, and I'm not sure if that is a goal yet or not, as it relates to the scrap tire disposal program. I'm wondering, in order to speed the process up, would it be better if we have some committee between now and our next meeting to come up with, some written information to try to, if we want to do that. I mean, if we don't want to do it, then it's not something that we're required to do. But we've talked about the retirement and health insurance cost.
We also talked a while back about the cost that we was incurring with those scrap tires too. So it's something we should.
Yeah.
Well, you're into trash. Why don't you pilot something, float something that has to do with paying a deposit on containers to facilitate recycling?
So Commissioner Richardson, as you'll recall, I sent it to you, and I'm sorry I hadn't tracked it, but there was a bill that was introduced that would do exactly that thing, that would add a deposit and make people do that.
I remember that. It was kind of picky though. The money that they were asking for was nothing compared to what's necessary to solve problems.
Right. I hadn't looked it up. I'll go back and look at that, but it could be certain. I mean, I think that would help. That would certainly help. It used to many years ago. Kids would pick up bottles and cans all over the place just to make a little money. So, I mean, we'll see the appetite on that. I'll go back and pull that bill and see if it got it.
I don't think we necessarily have to propose a bill, but I think we could make it as a support item for some way to facilitate deposits on recyclable materials. But you're going to have about 8 million lobbyists come out as soon as they see that. But
Well, the two things that got a lot of conversation when we had our meeting in Raleigh 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, was the scrap tire, because that needs to be updated. The other thing that was getting a lot of was the cost, the way they're doing the retirement. That, you know, the new treasurer, whoever that is, needs to revisit how fast they're doing that.
Right, so just to give you a little background on that one too. Now, I know I've told you before, I sit on the City County Managers Association Retirement Committee, and I'm actually serving on a subcommittee of that with the chairman of our committee. And we actually had a meeting last week with the League of Municipalities. We're meeting next week after with the association. They've done some actuarial studies. The North Carolina City County Managers Association has used some of our money that we receive from dues and vendors to do some actuarial studies and to look at some of the information about how the investments have been made, and the investments are made as a whole. So whether, you know, we're looking specifically at Elders, local government retirement, but the investments are handled the same way across teachers and state employees, Elders, judiciary, all those funds are managed in the same way. And essentially, in the comparisons they've looked at with the large groups across the United States who have these similar funds, North Carolina, although they are within the guidelines that the state has set for them, North Carolina is holding a whole lot more money in cash than all the other government agencies across the United States, and we're not getting as good a return on our funds. So both the candidates, both the Democrat candidate and the Republican candidate that are running to replace the treasurer, because he's term limited or has chosen not to run again, have both identified that as an issue, that they want to look at the investment strategies and try to bring that up, because there's some opportunities to do that. Obviously, there's also the Retired Government Association that's looking at that, because they've not had a COLA for their members in forever. Because it's statutorily written that any increases have to come from investment gains, and they just haven't had the investment gains to do that. The state can do it on the teaser side anytime they want to. They just pull from general fund to do it. So that is something that's being looked at strongly. There's also, that they talked about, was the pension spiking piece. You know, I've heard some of that. You've seen some of those letters that come out. There's a concern there that it's not being applied appropriately. The whole reason that pension spiking is really kind of a misnomer. The whole reason that law was put in place was because there were, actually, I think it started in a coastal ABC board, who had one of their executive directors, that they converted a deferred comp and something to cash at the very end of his tenure, which drove his salary way up, which then in turn drives your retirement payment up. And they've seen that happen in agencies like that. They've seen it happen in community colleges, where the presidents have had, you know, they get a part of their benefit packages, they get a country club membership. Well, at the last year they're there, they convert that to cash instead of membership. So it drives up their retirement benefits. So they identified that as issues they needed to work on, because it was impacting the retirement system. But when they put that law in place, they took it such a broad shotgun approach on it that it's starting to affect a lot of people. So the municipalities are seeing it for people like firefighters and police officers who come into an organization and are there their entire career, and then they end up as chief of the organization. And because they're making more than $100,000 a year, and the way they've calculated the benefit, that it won't pay it out of their life, the agency's getting dinged to have to pay that difference back. And that's just not what it's not a true spiking. If you go into the organization and you do something wrong like that, where you say, oh, we're going to convert this to cash to try to, you know, raise your retirement, that is wrong. And they should go after folks like that. But in general, the way it was written is it's catching a whole lot of folks, and it's costing municipalities and counties a lot of money because of the way the bill was written. And because you have an employee who just came through the ranks and got COLAs and didn't do anything weird, they're getting caught in that, and you're having to pay extra because of it. So that's been identified as an issue And I think there's some traction on looking at that. So.
Why don't we handle it this way? John has agreed to handle the health insurance and retirement. I'll do the scrap tire, and Hood, if you want to do something as it relates to the deposit, each one of us are trying to write up something and submit it to Brian and Anita. And Brian, if you want to address this spike, what do you call it? Pension spiking. Maybe you and John can do that together, and we'll have that on the agenda for August. Because I have served at the state level and seen the process work, by the time it gets to the vote of all 100 counties, I mean, we start out with a large number and it just keeps getting smaller and smaller. And the whole object is you've got to get it down to, I think, where the magic number is. It's in 65 counties.
Some of them ain't gonna make it to nowhere.
Right. They also have to go through the steering committee.
So I'll reach out also to Kevin Leonard with the association to see what kind of traction he sees on the rest of these, to see what it is. I mean, quite honestly, I think, unfortunately, Commissioner Richmond, I don't think there'll be much traction on the recycling.
No, most of that's done.
Yeah.
But what I have heard, and I think what y'all have heard also at the association meetings, I think there's strong traction on the scrap tires, and I think there's strong traction around the retirement health insurance.
Yeah, those are the two that I think has.
The only other hot item that I want to mention is there a recycled cost on mobile homes? These mobile homes, they get abandoned, they're sitting around everywhere. What if you had to pay $4,000 on every one of these things, and it went into a fund for cleanup of abandoned mobile homes?
Yes, so there used to be a fund where they would come in, you could apply to that to clean up abandoned mobile homes, and I don't think that fund exists anymore.
Yeah, we had them in Beaufort County one time, but it was a long time ago. But that would be a good thing. I think a lot of people would go for that. They're tired of seeing them.
Well, good luck, because in the Ag Steering Committee, I have pushed on several occasions to try to get a cleanup fund for solar panels, solar farms.
Yeah.
And it has gotten nowhere in the Agriculture Committee, which you would think they'd have had a chance. It would move up the ladder. And that's in that steering committee. Okay, we're down to our commissioners. Okay, and the first one, Commissioner Richardson, is school construction.
All right, I don't want to be on this school construction too much, but I've got several articles. You can go to Beaufort Observer and you can see what you get a lot of factual information. I distributed the last article. It was written by Delma Blenson, who is one of the best qualified people in the United States.
Make comment about this. And he's taught it at university. He's done it. On and on and on it goes. And our school, our $52 million project here is going rambling all over the place. One great example of this is they canceled the July the 8th. It's the construction update meeting, which has nothing to do with the overall philosophy and the management of how we go about this school. And that is whether we need neighborhood schools or whether we want to build a school as the last numbers were 1,000 students pre-K through third grade. Now, this thing started off, we've only got 800 students. 50% of our school buildings in the county are empty. 50% are sitting empty. And we want to build a building to hold 1,000 pre-K through third grade. We only have 800 students enrolled in this now, and we are losing population in Beaufort County. That thing went from 860 to 900 and something, and then the superintendent comes out with 1,000. This is all over the place. That's a great example of nothing is nailed down in this. And then all of a sudden, this meeting was canceled on the day before the June update. The meeting was canceled because there was nothing to report. But I've got a film at the very next school board meeting with the superintendent sitting there saying there was nothing to report, and that's why we canceled the meeting. Oh, by the way, we've had to move the whole building down to front on Pennsylvania Avenue, and we need to tear down what, in my estimation, is going to cost $5 million to replace buildings, which include a freezer building, the maintenance buildings, several other buildings that we're using for administration. All of a sudden, we have to tear these things down because we need to put a stormwater pond there. Look, guys, I do stormwater. I've done a bunch of stormwater projects. He's not going to teach me anything new about stormwater. That is the biggest joke out there, that you've got a 39-acre site with 9 acres of it in school buildings, and all of a sudden, you need to put a stormwater pond where the buildings are. And the reason is so you can get some new buildings, raising the cost of this project another $5 million. The project management is out of control. Read Delma Blinson's article. Without beating on this all night, I think that we need to go back and start over with this. We need a joint committee with the commissioners and the school board meeting together to sit down and talk about building this building and why we need to build this building. There are some really strong arguments out there that we need to have neighborhood schools for these small children. We don't need to cram 1,000 young kids into one building. Plus, where are we going to get the students? No study has been done for the attendance area of these schools or where they're going to draw from. None of that stuff has been done. And it's going to fly right in the face of education. Those studies need to be done. We need a philosophy of how we're going to go forward with primary education in this county, because it's proven that these consolidated schools just don't work. That's why we have a lot of the problems we have now. 2 neighborhood schools will take care of our situation if that's what we want to do. We have not done the definitive work to decide what to do. One person is telling us all of this. One person has given us all of this information with no explanation. We, as commissioners, have a responsibility to education in this county. And I know there are people that argue, let the school board do it. Well, guys, here's how it works. It's going to take the county signing off to get that money, along with the superintendent. That money passes through our hands, and you need to ask yourself, why does this come through the commissioner's hands? It comes through the commissioner's hands because the commissioners are a part of the process of providing education for this county. We need to be working with the school board, and this needs to be a joint effort, and the community needs to be involved. No one has bothered to say to the community, what do you think we need to be doing with this $52 million? This has been a big political process so far with zero management, zero oversight, and it's going to become an even bigger disaster before it's over with, because the people that are doing this simply don't know what they are doing. The public, you don't need to let somebody from California come to Beaufort County and define your school system for you. That's what our problem is now. The people in this county need to have a say about how their young children are educated and whether they go to neighborhood schools or whether they're crammed into one of these huge chicken factory schools where you can't distinguish one student from the other. So I make a motion that we go to the school board and say, look, we're not signing off on the money until we get together on how we're going to spend the money, and that includes the commissioners along with the school board.
Okay, we got a motion and a second discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the motion? I'm sorry. Did you?
Mr. Richardson, I'd love to see the studies you're pointing to that say 1,000 student school is going to degrade education. If you can do that, I'll be more than happy to look at that and see. But I don't think you're going to find it. I don't think you're going to find it anywhere.
Conversely, show me the studies that say 1,000 pre-K through third grade is going to improve education in one building.
You're the one making the accusation. You bring the study up.
No.
You're the one that says studies show.
I want the public involved. We have one man who's dictating this process.
That's not what I'm asking.
And everybody else is getting out. No, that's what I'm saying. You're trying to drag this off into another area. One man is dictating this process.
Whoa, I can't hear. I mean,
I'm just trying to validate what you're saying.
Okay.
That's all.
I'm asking for a study commission to look at this issue. Did I take a position one way or the other? No, I'm saying let's look at the issues with a group of people. I propose that there are issues that need to be looked at. And one of those issues is 1,000 kindergarten students in one school versus neighborhood schools, which is better. I'm proposing that the board sit down and look at this as alternatives. This may well be another white elephant of $52 million that we don't need because it's going to hair lip education in Beaufort County for the next 50 years if we do this. We need to be sure of what we're doing.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed? All right. You want to go to the criminal charges in the school system?
Well, this is another problem with our fantastic school system under the supervision
of Superintendent Cheeseman, who seems to be calling all of the shots. When the damage was done to the school cafeteria and the superintendent decided there would be no criminal charges brought when criminal activities took place on school property, on public property, I think we have a problem. I think that we need to take a look at and invite the superintendent, who has refused to come to the last 4 or 5 meetings that he's been invited to since we've been building this school, because he simply does not want to show up and answer questions. Why are you supporting criminal activity in the schools without bringing charges against the perpetrators? That is an issue, and I'll make a motion that we invite the superintendent to the next meeting to hear his explanation of why criminal charges were not brought against the criminals who did the damage in the school system, not just the cafeteria, but any other criminal activity in the school system. What is the school board's policy?
motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes.
I'm assuming you said you second. Okay. Discussion? All right. All those in favor of Commissioner Richardson's motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed?
I gather you support criminal activity in the school system.
Well, you can interpret that any way you want to, but I don't support criminal activity. But I think sometimes people have to be reminded, we have an elected school board, 9 people. And I think my philosophy is to stay in the lane. And if you have a conflict, call one of the school board members. Okay, you want to go to the Chocowinity?
We fund that school board. We have.
I understand that. You want to go to the Chocowinity update?
Okay. Is the attorney prepared to give us an update on the various lawsuits that are going on in Chocowinity? Why not? Why not?
Which lawsuits are you talking about? Various Chocowinity lawsuits. I don't know what that means.
I thought maybe you would do a little search over and see how many lawsuits there were going on in Chocowinity related to the thievery that's been going on over there and the countersuits that have been brought. It seems like I know more about this than you do.
You do. Evidently you do.
The
only thing I know is about Joy McElroy, and she's pending charges right now. And we're not part of that, except indirectly.
It's our money. Some of that's our money.
I hear you saying that.
Well,
but that's not mentioned in this.
What I'm asking you to do is at the next meeting to research the lawsuits that surround the Joy McElroy and the countersuits and anything else that has to do with legal activities involving Chocowinity government, and be prepared at the next meeting to give us a report on that.
Is that a motion?
That doesn't have to be a motion. I'm requesting it as a commissioner.
There needs to be a motion. You're wasting my time.
No, you want these guys, they're going to vote not to do this. And so you're going to be off the hook. I'm not letting you off the hook. I'm making my request as a commissioner, and maybe we need to go to Freedom of Information or something else in order to get this done. You are the county attorney, aren't you? You are supposed to know about lawsuits that involve the county.
I'm not your personal attorney.
No, you're not.
I'm the attorney for all.
If you notice, I'm sitting up here as a county commissioner, not as an individual.
Okay, if you want that, make a motion.
I want that, and I don't have to make a motion. The county attorney can refuse to cooperate as long as he wants to. The onus is on him, not on me.
You tell me that I can't go to a meeting and visit with anybody else without the board's authority. You've told that twice.
You didn't have secret meetings over in Pitt.
No.
Violated open meetings law. Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Okay. Did you make a motion?
No,
Well, you don't have to do it. Okay?
that's right.
You don't have to do it.
To represent the county.
You want to give an update on the affordable housing?
Not really.
Okay.
We had a meeting last week. We ended up adjourning the meeting because there was not representation. We've rescheduled that meeting for July 10th.
Okay, the next item is closed session. David, would you like to read us or Katie into closed session?
A motion is needed to go into closed session under NCGS 143.318.11A3 to consult with an attorney employed or retained by a public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body. This closed session is to discuss opioid litigation and a DSS matter.
Okay, we entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, we're back from closed session. I need a motion to come out of closed session.
Second.
Out of second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. David, would you want to give us just a short comment as it relates to the action we need to take on the resolution as it relates to the,
He has to read the resolution.
okay,
You've got the resolution here that I read.
yes.
And this is from one of our attorneys. I have prepared it for both county. And what they sent me, they said either you or me. And so Frankie's also, you've also got another version of this.
I did not open it to see, but it's asking me to sign it. It's a DocuSign.
Well, they want to get this under the wire the 12th of this month.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Okay, Brian.
Okay, so this is the resolution by the County of Beaufort authorizing the execution of the Kroger opioid settlement and approving the second settlement agreement for additional funds. Whereas the opioid overdose epidemic has taken the lives of more than 37,000 North Carolinians since 2000, and whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has compounded the opioid overdose crisis, increasing levels of drug misuse, addiction, and overdose death, and whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates the total economic burden of prescription opioid misuse alone in the United States is $78.5 billion a year, including the cost of healthcare, lost productivity, addiction treatment, and criminal justice involvement. And whereas certain counties and municipalities in North Carolina joined with thousands of local governments across the country to file lawsuits against opioid manufacturers, pharmaceutical distribution companies, and chain drugstores to hold these companies accountable for their misconduct. And whereas a settlement has been reached in litigation against the Kroger company, Kroger, as well as its subsidiaries, affiliates, officers, and directors named in the Kroger settlement. And whereas representatives of local North Carolina governments, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, and the North Carolina Department of Justice have negotiated and prepared a second supplemental agreement for additional funds, SAAF-2, to provide for the equitable distribution of the proceeds of these settlements. And whereas by joining the settlements and approving the SAAF-2, the state and local governments maximize North Carolina's share of opioid settlement funds to ensure that needed resources reach communities as quickly, effectively, and directly as possible. And whereas it is advantageous to all North Carolinians for local governments, including Beaufort County and its residents, to sign on to the settlements and SAAF-2 and demonstrate solidarity in response to the opioid overdose crisis, and to maximize the share of opioid settlement funds received both in the state and in this country to help abate the harm And whereas the SAAF2 directs substantial resources over multiple years to local governments on the front lines of the opioid overdose epidemic while ensuring that these resources are used in an effective way to address the crisis. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Beaufort County hereby authorizes the county manager or county attorney to execute all documents necessary to enter into opioid settlement agreements with Kroger to execute the SAAF-2 and to provide such documents to Rubus, the implementation administrator. Adopted this the first day of July 2024. Frankie Waters, Chairman, Beaufort County Board of Commissioners.
Okay, got a motion. Is there a second? Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Okay, we're down to the last item, which is commissioner comments. Okay.
I would like the article that I handed out that was written by Delma Blinson involving the school's construction to be included in the minutes of tonight's meeting.
Okay, anyone else? I'd just like to make a comment for the public record. I've had several telephone calls and several emails as it relates to the funding for the senior center here in Washington. Just want the public to understand that we have been funding that at $20,000 a year. And that was a request from the city of Washington, and that's what the commissioners approved in their budget. So I would say if you have any additional questions, you focus that not the county commissioners, but to the city council. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand.